Shalom. I want to give all honor, all praise, and all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rachak, Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the old like tabernacle of David scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. So you had the Genesis Israelites, Hassad and Hakah. You know, they were going into the controversial topic of the strangers, which you have a lot of people of the Christian faith, Christian belief that believe that anytime the word stranger is being used, whether in the Old or the New Testament, just like the word Gentile, it automatically means non-Israelite. Like an Israelite can never become a Gentile or a stranger. And that's a way of being able to accept heathens into the covenant. That's a way that they accept heathens into the promise. And according to them, you know, it gives credence to their belief that all nations can receive salvation. But like many other scriptures, they err, all right, not knowing the scriptures. So they happen to be going into Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, which I believe we covered this before. But you'll have certain people that believe, according to this text in Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, that heathens can actually enter into the covenant with the Most High. Now, if you know the law, you would know that it would be a contradiction for heathens to all of a sudden be able to enter into the covenant with the Most High God, when he told his people that they shouldn't even make covenants with the heathen, that you shouldn't give your sons to their daughters, that you're not to take their daughters to wife, you're not to give your daughters to their sons. So how all of a sudden, while we're still in the wilderness, before we even enter into the promised land, that the Lord suddenly makes a change of heart and say, well, they can enter into a covenant with me, even though I told y'all just a little early on that you're not to make any covenants with them. Let's go to Exodus. Was it the 34th chapter? Let me see. Yeah, the Lord drove out nations, heathens, for our sake. He wanted us to be separate from the beginning. But all of a sudden, they can come among us and enter into covenants and have service and worship of the Lord with us. Come on, man. Exodus 34:10, it says, and he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But you shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice, and thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. Right? So it's telling you right there, we shouldn't even enter into no agreement with them. Let me see. Let me go down. Hold up. Let me do this. Exodus 23. It is when we drove out the Canaanites. It says, Exodus 23:29 says, I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. By little and little I will drive them out from before thee, until thou be increased and inherit the land. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea even to the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. Okay? They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. So we were not allowed to make any agreements with them, marry with them. So how all of a sudden they will be allowed to enter into a covenant with us, right? So let's start here. This is Deuteronomy 29. And I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, and I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes are not waxing old upon you, and thy shoe is not waxing old upon thy foot. You have not eaten bread, neither have you drunk wine or strong drink, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. And when you came unto this place, Sihon the king of Heshbon and Og the king of Bashan came out against us to battle, and we smote them. And we took their land and gave it for an inheritance unto the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half tribe of Manasseh. Keep therefore the words of this covenant and do them, that you may prosper in all that you do. You stand this day, all of you, before the Lord your power, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel. Your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in thy camp. So they'll read the word stranger and be like, well, you did have a mixed multitude that came into the wilderness with Israel. And Israel could be strangers. They could be sojourners. All right. And it's basically preparing us for, when we enter into the land, that we all have to be up under this agreement. And if we violate this agreement, we become cursed. If we keep our end of the covenant, we will be blessed. That's why in the previous chapter, it said that, if you do all the words of this covenant, you will be blessed. And then you read the first 15 verses and go into the many blessings that will be bestowed upon us if we stay within the agreement. But the moment we violated the agreement and we start worshiping idols and doing our own thing, then all those curses will come upon us. So you telling me that these heathens that came in as a mixed multitude with us, that they would have entered into this, so that would mean that they would have to be under the curse too. That would mean that they would have to be scattered among the nations. That would mean that they would have to be uh, uh, ousted from the land. But how would that be if they were never given an inheritance with Israel? And what proves that? So not only are we not supposed to marry them, but we even have our law where if a Israelite man had no sons to carry his legacy, his lineage, his daughter would have to marry a man within her tribe, the tribe of her father, so that the inheritance wouldn't be removed from that particular tribe. So if we have that law where our daughter can only marry a man of her own tribe so that the inheritance doesn't get removed, then how the hell is a heathen entering into a covenant with us? Because if she had to, if a man had a daughter and she married a heathen, then that inheritance become the heathens. There's already a law that tells you that they're not even supposed to congregate with us. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23. This is 6 chapters prior to Deuteronomy 29. These Christians, they don't know the scriptures like that, man. Deuteronomy 23:1, it says, "He that is wounded in the stones or have his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. A bastard," all right, basically a individual whose mom happened to be an Israelite, but his father is a heathen, he will not be able to enter into the congregation. All right, he's illegitimate. All right, he will not be able to enter into the congregation. He says, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Okay. It says an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. All right. So you're not able to come fellowship and have service with us. No, because you're an heathen. And that's why when we was even building up our temple, they was trying to offset the building of the temple. They were trying to get involved, and they got ousted. They were denied. You can't come and build with us. You wouldn't even be allowed to enter. Right? Well, they'll bring up, well, what about Ruth? Ruth was willing to come and serve their God and this and that. She cleaved on. Yeah, she was one of the vessels. All right, which the Lord can do that. He just took that woman, because remember the story. The law on inheritance and the fact that Naomi, she was I think she was widowed, if I'm not mistaken, but they needed an inheritance for Judah. So in order to preserve the line of Judah, they had to have a woman. And this woman happened to be from Moab, because Naomi, I believe that's where she was. All right. And I think they was trying to purchase a field. I might have to revisit, since I brought it up, now I got to revisit that. But all she served was as a surrogate to preserve Israel. It wasn't that she was able to enter into any covenant with the Most High or anything like that. Okay. Ruth 1:1, it says, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites, and of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other, Ruth. So they married these 2 Moabite women, which shows you, going back to the law, you're not to marry them, especially if they take you away from serving your God. But if you, take them as a concubine and marry them and still serve your Lord, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if they're cleaving to you. Usually these men, they go and they cleave to their woman and serve whatever God and practice of her culture. And then when they have children together, they got their children serving the God of their mothers. And that's not, for us, that's totally off. So going back into it, because they'll try to use this story, and correlate it with what I'm reading in Deuteronomy 29 to include heathens into the covenant. This right here just happened to be a circumstance, where a woman was widowed and she needed, somebody to step up because there was an inheritance. All right. So she was widowed and there was an inheritance. All right. It says, Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. All right. So now she's stuck with her 2 daughters-in-law who happen to be of Moab. Then she saw with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them and they lifted up their voice and wept. All right. And they really cleaved to her. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people, your people. Right. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say I have hope, I should have an husband also tonight, and shall also bear sons. Would you tarry for them till they were grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sake that the hand of the Lord is going out against me. And then Ruth, she was like, I'm cleaving. So when you go to the 4th chapter, because we know that this is how Boaz came into the picture. All right, when he was purchasing the land and he saw her and he wanted her. And Boaz happened to be from the tribe of Judah, right? Because anybody else that opted out of it to not raise up an inheritance for Judah, the law said that, let me see if I could try to find that. Hold up. Because I know there's a law on, if you not raise up a seed to your brother, you would have to suffer humiliation. Let me see. Here it is. So this is Ruth 4 and 1. It says, then Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it beside thee. And I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. Right, because her sons, Naomi's sons, they were of Judah, of Bethlehem, Judah. Right, and Boaz happened to be of the line of Judah. So they needed somebody to raise up a name to their inheritance, to keep it redeemed. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, because it would have went to one of the sons after Naomi's husband's death. But then they both ended up dying and they became widowed. So who was going to keep the inheritance of Judah to Judah, right? By basically looking for a Judite man to wife the widow, to wife the daughter-in-law of Naomi, right? It says, and the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to myself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in the former time in Israel concerning redeeming, concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor. And this was a testimony in Israel. All right. And if you wouldn't do that for your brother, or he had a excuse because he already had an inheritance. But if you had a brother that died and you didn't want to take his wife to raise up seed to your brother, you would pretty much, it would be humiliation. Deuteronomy 25 and 7, it says, and if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up into the gate of the elders and say, my husband's brother refused to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak unto him. And if he stand to it and say, I will not take her, then shall his brother's wife come into the presence of the elders and loose his shoe from off his foot and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done to that man that will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him that have his shoe loosed. So that was the custom. So going back, verse 7, it says, now this was, I read that. Verse 8, it says, therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and to all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place you are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elder said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is coming to thine house like Rachel and like Leah. Now, were they of the covenants? No. But what they were women who were used to bring forth the nation. They incubated. They brought forth the seed. They were basically vessels to preserve the sons of Israel. All right. But it didn't mean that they were, a part of the covenant. but we were to treat them with with a special relationship. We had to keep the diplomacy, with the Syrian, the Aramean, because that's where they came from. They were related to Abraham. All right, one of Abraham's relatives. That they were descendants of Abraham's relatives. Okay, so just like Jacob had his litter with Rachel, Leah, and he even mentioned the other two maids. But Rachel and Leah, because they were given to Jacob by way of Laban. All right, and I believe Laban, if I'm not mistaken, was Rebecca's brother? And Rebecca was the one who told Jacob to go and flee to Haran because Esau was pissed. So when he ran over there, he ran over to his relative, and his relative, which would be his uncle, gave his two daughters to him. It says, which did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem, and let thy house be like the house of Pharez. All right, this is another instance, another circumstance where Judah had to basically go in. Well, it was Judah himself. He had to go into a harlot, and this woman, she wasn't an Israelite, of course, to preserve the seed of Judah. That's why when you go into Yahushai's genealogy in Matthew 1, Tamar, her name shows up, Ruth's name show up, because they were surrogates to prolong the line of Judah. All right. It says, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. And it's the same line, the same seed that our Lord would come from out of. So it had to happen in this way. But this did not mean at all that after she had the child, that now all of a sudden she's in the covenant now and she's going to receive the inheritance of the kingdom and all this and other stuff. Nah, man. But she was going to be treated fair. She was a wife. Okay. And that was that. That was it. So going back to Deuteronomy 23, they're not able to come into the congregation. They're not able to keep the Passover. Like when you, and this is why you got to understand the Hebrew. You can't just read it in English or you're gonna get confused. People that claim that they can point out contradictions in the Bible are the same people that don't read it in the original text, in the original language that it was written in. All right. So they draw that conclusion based on their ignorance. So that's a reason why they, you shouldn't believe the Bible, because it was rewritten and there's a lot of contradictions in it and this and that. No, you don't know the Bible. All right. But let's go to Exodus 12. And this is just an instance. And this is why you have to go into the original language. So this is Exodus 12 and 43. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. And what word is there? Nakar. Bun nakar. See that? So they're not able to eat. This type of stranger is not able to eat of the Passover. Right? But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. All right? Because you had Hebrew servants. You can read Deuteronomy 15. You had actual Hebrew servants who served other Hebrews. And that's why it says in Leviticus, the 25th chapter, that you don't rule over an Israelite servant the way you would rule over a heathen. You don't rule over him with rigor. All right? So it was a different protocol. They had different a different treatment. So that shows you that there's a difference of strangers. So a stranger, according to Deuteronomy 29, he can enter into the covenant, but he can't eat of the Passover. So continuing on, it says, but every manservant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof. All right. When you jump down to verse 48, it says, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover. Now let's see what word is used there. I'm pretty sure it's not bandakar. The word there is gar, which means stranger. Like Moses' son Gershom. He was given that name because he was born in a foreign land. Okay. So this is clearly talking about an Israelite sojourner, and we'll keep the Passover. So when we come to the land, which the males we were supposed to appear before the Lord 3 times a year to worship him. And this is one of those occasions. So if you're coming from, Mesopotamia, or you coming from out of, one of those Asia Minor countries or cities, if you coming from Asia, wherever you're coming from, you coming from up out of Egypt. If you came over into Israel, you was sojourning there. And you would be able to keep the Passover. It says, let all his males be circumcised, and let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So they have to be given that right, the inheritance right, when they come back to the land, even though they don't live in the land. All right, so there's a difference. A heathen couldn't eat of the Passover, but an Israelite foreigner, as long as he's circumcised, he would be able to eat of the Passover. So it's the same thing, man. So a Moabite, an Ammonite, they wouldn't be circumcised. They would not be able to eat. All right, and this only applies to those who are under the covenant to come and serve the Lord. And we are already read the laws where it says don't even make a covenant with the heathen, because they worship other and serve other gods. They'll turn you away from serving me. All right, it says an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. And remember what Moab did, when Balak tried to put a curse upon us. So it's basically fuck them. Everybody that tried to fight us when we came out of the wilderness, when we was coming into the wilderness and we was passing by the land and people, didn't want to mess with us, it was basically a big F you to all of them. All right. So, yeah, none of them would even be allowed to assemble with us. They would not be allowed to enter into the sanctuary. They would not be able to come in and worship, because they worship they had their own gods that they served. All right. So going back to Deuteronomy 29, this is just to give everything context so you can understand what type of stranger this is. It says, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger, verse 11, that is in thy camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water, that thou shouldest enter into covenant with the Lord thy power, and into his oath, which the Lord thy God maketh with thee this day, that he may establish thee today for a people unto himself. And he didn't do that with everybody else. He only did that with Israel, that they should be to him a holy people, a holy nation, not these heathens. They're not holy. It says, and that he may be unto thee a God, and as he had said unto thee, as he has sworn unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before the Lord thy power, or the Lord our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. Because Israel would be everywhere. All right. For you know how we have dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations which you passed by, and you have seen their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them. Lest there be any among you, man or woman or family or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood. And it shall come to pass, when he heareth the words of this curse, that he bless himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I have walked in imagination of mine heart to add drunkenness to thirst. The Lord will not spare him, but the anger of the Lord and his jealousy shall smote against that man. So he's still talking about everybody that he mentioned from verses 10 all the way down to 15. So that means that if you're going to imply that these other nations that came with us, all right, into the wilderness, the mixed multitude, that this all pertains to them as well, then they're entering into this curse. All right. And you show me where any of these curses came upon our enemies. You see, they didn't stop serving their idols, their gods, and practicing their paganistic customs. And we were to remain separate from that. They would not be able to eat at the Passover or none of that. They would not be able to share an inheritance with us. So obviously, this is all referring to the nation of Israel. All right. And it says finishing verse 20, it says, the Lord will not spare him, but the anger of the Lord and his jealousy shall smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book shall lie upon him. And the Lord shall blot out his name from under heaven, and the Lord shall separate him unto evil out of all the tribes of Israel. What you mean out of all the tribes of Israel? What about the mixed multitude that he was just speaking about? Why did it go right back to Israel? So you mean the curse is going to skip over the heathen that entered into the covenant, but only applied to Israelites? Stop. You got to use logic too when you're reading this. And you can't be a lazy reader. You got to read into it. So this is talking about how, because when you broke a certain law, you would be outcasted from the people. You would be removed, separated. And then that's why later down the line, like during the time of Nehemiah, Ezra, when they was reinstating the priesthood, they had to enter back into an oath. All right, because they were separated from the priesthood. They were separated, from the inheritance. So they had to basically enter back into that oath to get back in good graces with the Most High. So they were stranger. They became strange at one point, especially after the exile, when we was in the Babylonian captivity. And what was the first thing that they acknowledged when they entered into the oath? They will put away their wives, their strange women. They will separate, the seed of Israel will separate themselves from strangers. Let's deal with that. Was it Nehemiah? And I'm about to end it. This is Nehemiah 10 and 28. It says, and the rest of the people, the priests, the Levites, the porters, the singers, the Nethinims, and all they that had separated themselves from the people of the lands of the law of God, their wives, their sons, and their daughters, every one having knowledge and having understanding, they clave to their brethren, their nobles, and entered into a curse and into an oath. The same curse and oath we read about in Deuteronomy 29, to walk in God's law, which was given by Moses, the servant of God, and to observe and do all the commandments of the Lord our God, right? Or Lord, and his judgments and his statutes, that thou would not give our daughters unto the people of the land, nor take their daughters for our sons, all right? And if the people of the land bring war or any victuals on a Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them of the Sabbath or on the Sabbath or on the holy day, or that we would leave the seventh year in the exaction of every debt. Okay. So this is what they had to do to enter back into that oath. They had to separate themselves. Let's go to I think there was another one in was that Ezra. You got Ezra 9, and then you also got Ezra 10. Well, y'all go read these, but this is the point. But we had to separate ourselves during the time of when we was going to when we was rebuilding the temple. Let me do this. Bear with me. Oops. Was it here? Hold up. No, Nehemiah 13:1, it says, on that day they read in the book of Moses, and this is what I read in Deuteronomy 23. It says, on the day they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them, and howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. See that? So this is what they had to do. The only strangers that was able to cleave and come back were Israelites. I think there was one in Chronicles that I'm forgetting, but I might have to just maybe look for it after it posts, after the video, and just post it in the comment section. But separating from the bun the car and not the gar. If you understand that, then this would not confuse you. Okay. It says, so back in Deuteronomy 29, I'm going to close it up. It says, verse 22, it says, so the generation to come of your children, thou shalt rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land, because Israel, we will be scattered, right? So we will come from a far land, shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which the Lord have laid upon it, and that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboam, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and his wrath. Even all nations shall say, wherefore the Lord have done this unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring it upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day. And the Lord even had it to where when he got rid of us, he was allowing heathens to come in and you know, they will come and dwell in our inheritance. Even during the time of Shalmaneser the fifth, the northern kingdom got cast out of their land, and he imported heathens, and they desecrated, of course, they violated. The Lord sent lions down, I think. All right, so they had to get a priest to teach them the way of the land so that they can still dwell there, but they still was able to serve their gods because the Most High didn't claim them. So no, they would not, the heathen would not enter into no covenant with the Most High. Why you think Paul said, and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High, all that pertains to Israelites. So if you can't see that, then hey, you know, the Lord just didn't open your eyes, and it's not meant for you to receive it, to understand. All right, but don't listen to them Christians, all right, especially when they try to pull out these scriptures. They try to say that heathens can enter into the oath, and you know they can do this and do that. Nah, man. That stranger is still talking about an Israelite. So hopefully this was edifying. I'm going to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And to the next lesson, Shalom.